Welcome podcast. It is Monday, April 24th. It is draft week. It's finally here. Before we get into this, myself, Jake Hasan, joined as always by Kevin Lapka. I just need it to happen already. Like it's just we're so over. Like we're so oversaturated with draft information and rumors, and I don't know how many times in the past 2 months I've said, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. Or there's some, it's just like we need Roger Goodell to be bringing the cards to the podium and announcing the picks already. And now we're just a couple days away. It's here. It's on the doorstep. Couldn't have come at a better time. Couldn't have come sooner. It's time for these picks to get made. And so here we are today. We're going to go through one more mock, go through one more projection of what we think is going to happen, what we think might happen. And before we even get into this, I have a thought about the way this draft is going to go for the Bears. And we'll get to that in a second. But I mean, Kevin, do you feel the same way I do? Like, it's just, it's got to happen.
Yeah, it's like every day it's like, this is the Bears guy at 9. Paris Johnson is their guy. B.J.
Right.
Robinson is their guy at 9. But I will say, I think Ryan Poles is doing that for a reason, and we'll get to that. But I am over it. Like, I just put out a full first-round mock draft on Tap Sports Network. You guys can check it out. This is not what I think is actually going to happen for the Bears. It's just more of like an exploration of what could happen in this first round. And, I've seen a lot of tweets about it, and we've talked about before. This feels like one of the most unpredictable first rounds in recent memory, right? Like have just again with the ambiguity of where Jalen Carter will go, and now Tyree Wilson potentially rising above Will Anderson, which teams are going to trade up, which quarterbacks going to be taken. Like, it just seems very ambiguous and unpredictable, and it's going to make for a really interesting night. But I am done. Like, this always happens every year. It's like we get this, you get oversaturated with the content in the mock drafts, and we're just like, we need it. There's too many rumors. There's too many things that turn out in hindsight to be completely false. And at some point, like, I think pundits and draft analysts and guys just like make shit up for content. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, is the
when
Robinson
you've been talking about it for 2
real?
months, like there's only so much you can draw the string out. So no, I mean, totally. And I think it could go any way. I think, we've talked about trades, another trade before. Obviously, the Bears moved from 1 to 9. And so we'll talk about it. We'll talk about all the different things that we think might happen. But this is Bears Nation Podcast brought to you by OnTap Sports Network. Go to OnTap Sports, get everything you need for your Chicago sports fix. But we press on here. Kevin, the more that I think about it and the more that I see, and obviously in the space that I work in, I'm more tuned into the gambling odds and what that tells you. Mm-hmm. And Will Levis is now the overwhelming favorite to go number 2 overall, which, we talked about in our last episode. It was great for me holding a 20-1 ticket for Will Levis
really
to go number 2 overall. I feel fantastic, and I'm hoping, excuse me, the prayer circle full effect right now for that. Yeah, apparently it's working, which would be great. I would be very, very happy if that happened. But, the more that we talk about this, and you talk about Tyree Wilson now is favored to go as the first defensive player too. He's now become the favorite for that as well. And there's just so much different stuff because we went from Jalen Carter being the favorite to be the first defensive player selected, possibly at number 1 by the Bears. Then, all the off the field stuff happens, whether it be, the misdemeanor charges and the racing charges or the bad pro day and, him canceling his visits with anyone outside the top 10. And then Will Anderson becomes the favorite for first defensive player, and he was there for a while. And now Tyree Wilson has come up to that spot too, where to the point where is Tyree Wilson going to get taken second by the Texans if they don't take a quarterback, or are the Cardinals going to take him at 3 if they stay there and don't trade out? So it's just very interesting. The more that this happens, and the more turnover and the way things are changing, I do think that, and we talked about it our last episode, I didn't think there was another chance that the Bears would trade down again. We kind of talked about it, and you kind of started to bring me around it. I think there's probably like a coin flip chance now, even if it's just to 11 with the Titans. Let's say Anthony Richardson's still on the board at 9 and gets past Atlanta and Vegas, and let's say the other top 3 are already off the board. I think there's a chance that the Bears now trade back as people start to rise and fall, because you were sitting at a point now where you might see someone like Christian Gonzalez fall outside the top 10.
For sure.
And so that's someone who we talked about, someone who you're very high on for the Bears to take as well. So I think there's a lot of options here, and I don't think I'm going to be surprised by very much come Thursday night.
Really? By what the Bears do or just the draft in general?
Both.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears stay. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded down. I'm just kind of thinking that this could really go anyway, and I won't be surprised really either which way, whatever it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I won't be surprised because I'm almost 100% conviction that they're going to trade. Like, that's where I'm at. The Bears are going to trade. That's where I'm at right now. I know Jalen Carter, I believe when we're talking about betting odds, as of Monday, today, April 24th, he is the leading favorite for the odds-on favorite to be taken at number 9 overall by the Bears, especially with these reports today that apparently Paris Johnson Jr. is like unlikely to make it out of the top 9. Again, this goes back to all these things that Jake and I are talking about every day. It's some different report that ends up not being true, and I'm sure that one's not true. I would be shocked actually if Paris Johnson was taken, above pick 8. That would actually kind of surprise me just with the density of talent still going to be available for a lot of these teams with 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10. But we talked earlier about, here's these rumors about, okay, Ryan Poles said this is their guy, and this is their guy, and this is their guy, and Bijan Robinson, speculation, don't sleep on him. And I told you I think there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you what I think that reasoning is. I think Ryan Poles is actively, like, if he's been doing this, right? He's out there. He did this before the trade to Carolina. He's making himself present on what he likes and what he wants, and he's going out there to all these teams and to these these insiders who are sharing these reports that, hey, I like this guy and I like this guy, and when it becomes our pick at number 9, there's a lot of these guys I like, and if you want to jump up to number 9 for one of these guys, you got to pay a pretty price because I like a lot of them, right? And This is our guy. And what he's doing is he's setting himself up to have leverage in those situations to accrue more assets. So when we do and reveal these mock drafts here that Jake and I have created, I do have a trade, at number 9. And I think Ryan Poles, his intent is to trade that pick. And like you're mentioning here, with the shuffling that's going on in the top 10, there's a chance that you can even trade later if it's 17 to Pittsburgh and still get a really talented player like a Broderick Jones or even a Devin Witherspoon or something like that. Like, you're going to get a very good player even if you trade down past, number 16, which is, middle of the first round. So I think I'm 100% in on a trade. I think that's going to be the play. And also, it's almost like this, Jake. Like, if you have multiple blue chip players at 9 that are still available for you, but you don't want to pick one, that could also be an avenue where you trade down. You say there's 3 of them we like, but we don't like one more than the other. Yeah, and then because we don't like one significantly more than the other, we trade down. We hope
that'd
one
be
of them
like
falls
a scenario like when you're like I brought up the Tennessee scenario. You move back to 11. And instead of 17 or 20 or what have you, you move to 11. That gives you 9 and 10 to let Tennessee. I mean, theoretically, Tennessee would probably take like an Anthony Richardson or one of the quarterbacks who's available. But then at 10, who's at 10? I'm
blanking. Sorry, I should know this. It's not anyone. Is it
the Eagles?
The Eagles, sorry, yeah.
So then, they'll take Bijan Robinson. So no, I'm kidding. So I mean, maybe they make maybe you're between let's just say Peter Skoronski and Christian Gonzalez. Let's say the Eagles take Skoronski. All right, then you're up at 11. You go, okay, well the decision was made for us. So I do think that there's some credibility to that for sure, and which is why I kind of think that there might be a trade as well. Which is why I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes any which way. So. Yeah, I mean, let's get into kind of our mocks and what we think is going to happen. You're excited. You texted me. I think I might have the greatest mock of all time. So by all means.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right. So as I mentioned, I'm doing a trade here at number 9 overall. So let's start it off again. Number 9. I'm going with, I said before, when we did this a week ago, when the smoke with the Pittsburgh Steelers was created, I said I only think the Steelers would trade up for Jalen Carter, and then you kind of convinced me that might not 100% be the case. And I went back and I realized just how bad the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line was. Kenny Pickett wasn't getting sacked a whole lot, but that run game was abysmal. I mean, Najee Harris had a huge down year, and I think their ideology is, look, if Jalen Carter's not there, hey, we still need a guy to protect Kenny Pickett. If this is going to be our young franchise quarterback, that's important. He's not the most mobile guy, and we want this running game to thrive if we're going to rely on that. And I think they're going to trade up, whether it is for Jalen Carter or an offensive tackle. I think the Steelers are going to go up and get their guy at 9, and in return, the Bears are going to get round 2, pick number 32, the pick that they traded for Chase Claypool. They're going to get it back, and it's going to be like in the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner. Ryan Poles is going to sit there and he's like, and I want my goddamn pick back. That's what he's going to say. I want my goddamn pick back. And if he gets that pick back, unbelievable. Like, right? And look, it's not...
So you'd be moving from what, 9
to 17. So you're moving down 8 spots, which I think is to get, it's interesting. This might benefit you here that it's considered a second rounder at number 32. Right. It's technically a first rounder, right, but it's labeled as a second rounder. That might help you a little bit. I don't know if teams really see that way, but that's like, you're moving down 8 slots, and if the Steelers really like somebody, you're going to have to pay that price. I'm sorry, that's the price that you have to pay. There's a chance that they could give up, or that they could get back. The Steelers have 2 second-round picks, which is why I think this trade is more likely. If the Steelers had 1 second-round pick, I would say no way they're just going to trade that and forfeit their second-round pick to move up here. They have too many holes in their roster to afford that. But I think they've got like 48 or 49 as well, just their natural pick that they get from their record last year. So you get pick number 32 back, which would rectify everything, right? Everyone was so upset about the Chase Claypool thing. You get that pick back, and then at 17 overall, Bears select Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia. So they get their guy at tackle. 17 is too late for Paris Johnson. It's too late for Peter Skoronski. But again, one of these guys is going to fall. And Broderick Jones, in my opinion, has the potential to be the best tackle of all of them. Sure. This is a guy that played at Georgia. He was dominant while there. Matched up well with anybody, All-American, right? Like, this guy is an absolute stud. Really quick with his feet. Is an athlete, and he can play both right or left tackle as well. I think he's more of a true right tackle, but I love Broderick Jones, and getting that 17 to me is huge value. I think he might go at 13. People are saying he'd go to the Jets at 13, but again, the way this shakes out, I think there's a true chance. And at the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be a dynamite prospect available at 17 out of a position of need. Like, I do think Ryan Poles will, in general, operate in best player available. I do, and if you read my first round mock on Tap Sportsnet, you'll see why. But I wouldn't like Witherspoon there. I'd like Broderick Jones more than Witherspoon. I wouldn't like any wide receiver there. I like JSN, but
you still think Witherspoon would be on the board at 17?
Potentially. I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance. Again, just the ambiguity here. Like, some of these guys are going to fall, and some of these teams are going to reach. Like some team might reach on Zay Flowers at 15th, right? Like, it's just a weird draft this year. But I do think Broderick Jones is pretty likely to be available at 17 overall, and I really, really like him, and I think he's going to be your starting right tackle. He's going to be dominant for you. He's a really impressive prospect. So I'm going Broderick Jones as 17 overall after a trade with the Steelers in which you get your 32nd overall pick back. So huge move for Ryan Poles there, and I think it's actually pretty likely.
So let me ask you this. Did you still have Darnell Wright on the board here, and you just chose to go with Jones over Wright?
Yeah, I did. I have Darnell Wright going 21 to the Chargers in my first round mock, but I think Broderick Jones is the better prospect, in my opinion. I like Darnell Wright, and I know there's been smoke about Darnell Wright rising up to number 9 if the Bears stand pat there. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. Broderick Jones, to me, is just a better overall player. He played for the better team, has more experience. This guy's a 2-time national champion. He's 6'4", he's huge, he's dominant. Darnell Wright has skills that are attractive, but he doesn't have the same college resume as Broderick Jones does. And I think when it comes to that, when they have similar skill sets and, the projectable is there for Darnell Wright to potentially be really good, but in my opinion, Broderick Jones is more of a sure thing. You can't afford to miss on this pick. He's the safer pick. I'm going Broderick Jones. I think he's the better pick at 17.
Did you consider Kalijah Kancey at all?
I did. It was between Kalijah Kancey and Broderick Jones. It was. And then I kind of looked at the roster, and I think Kancey's going to be really good, but I think Broderick Jones is going to be really good too. He's a guy that needs maybe a little bit more development. I think Kancey will come in day one and be really, really effective for you. But part of it had to do with what I do later in the draft with the rest of these picks. It was a tough decision because I think Kancey's going to be good, but I think Broderick Jones is more necessary for your team right now when it comes to protecting Justin Fields and doing what you need to do on offense. And part of it was you have Justin Jones there, who I don't think is that awful, and that shouldn't preclude you from taking a player like Kalijah Kancey, but just given what they have, I think they're going to go Broderick Jones. I think they're going to invest in their offense and invest in making sure that Justin Fields is upright this year, and they're going to do that with a really, really good player. Third-ranked athleticism score for Broderick Jones, too. I talked about that athleticism, second overall, a combine production score. So just a really, really talented player.
Let me throw one more, and then we'll move on. Throw this at you really quick. If I told you, because in this trade of yours, you have the Bears getting 32 overall back, which is essentially 31 overall back, that they famously gave away in the Chase Claypool trade. So you have 32 there, and you're at 17. What if I told you, like, if I could ensure to you, if I promise you, like, in this world that I am the master of everything, I tell you 100% that Darnell Wright's going to be there at 32. Would you lean more towards going Kancey, or you said Devin Witherspoon's still available, somebody like that?
Yeah, if you told me that was going to be possible, yeah. No, that's not to say that I think the Bears would be reaching for Broderick Jones and it's not the great value play. Right. But if I knew that Darnell Wright was available at 32 and there was potentially a better best player available at 17 than Broderick Jones, then yes, I would do it. I just honestly don't think that there will be a lot of other, like, do you think that Devin Witherspoon is a better player overall than Broderick Jones as a prospect? Like, do you? I
think Devin Witherspoon is firmly in the blue chip category. I think Jones is close. That's probably some of my biasing is, since I went to University of Illinois and I watched him more, that's probably some bias by me.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, if you turn on ESPN or, if for some reason you're watching FS1, that's why Devin Witherspoon is being mocked in the top 10 so much, because a lot of people see him as having that blue chip ability. Now, Broderick Jones has come up further, risen up draft boards more so recently. But also, let's not forget Devin Witherspoon had that jump, up draft boards from like end of the third round to no, this guy's top 10. And now, more recently, the rise for Jones is happening, so it's kind of firmly in our brain more. But I would have Witherspoon ahead of Jones. That's I could see the argument for Kancey versus Jones more clearly. But, if Witherspoon's there at 17, I think Ryan Poles is running to the podium.
Really?
I think sprinting there.
Wow.
That might just be my bias, though. I don't, I'm literally wearing an Illinois shirt.
No, it's not your bias. Again, it goes back. It's like the same conversation that we had about Christian Gonzalez last week, right? Like you're not necessarily in a position where you have to take an offensive tackle. Like you have the player depth there. It's not great, but you have the player depth there. If you want to go for a player who's going to be dynamite, like go for it. The question I had one more before we get to your pick here at number 9, unless you trade. If you're taking Broderick Jones at 17. Is that a strong indication that he's going to be your left tackle? I mean, he can play both. He played less than 1,400 snaps at left tackle at Georgia last year. But is he guaranteed to be the left tackle if he's taken at 17? Or
let me say it this way. I don't think anybody, let's say you stay at 9 and you take Skoronski or Johnson, I don't think whoever you pick is guaranteed left tackle. Because like we've talked about, you still have a need at right tackle potentially, depending on where you put Tevin Jenkins, one of the guard spots possibly, or even center. So I think right tackle is the most pressing matter on the offensive line, given the status of, we like Braxton Jones. It seemed like the Bears like Braxton Jones. We like Tevin Jenkins. We like Nate Davis, the signing there. So theoretically, you have left tackle and both guard spots taken care of, which leaves center and right tackle being the most pressing one, because at least at center, you have, for now, Cody Whitehair and Lucas Patrick there, who are two guys who have a lot of snaps at that position, and two guys who, if one gets hurt, if and when, because they both have spent time injured in the last couple of years, specifically last year, but two guys there to kind of fill one spot. So really right tackle is the more pressing matter, because it seems like the Bears like Braxton Jones. It seemed like he developed really well over the course of the year last year, and still I feel like has a pretty high ceiling that he hasn't like really scratched yet. We saw kind of flashes of it. So I don't think no matter who you draft, whether that be Paris Johnson, whether that be Pete Skoronski, whether that be Broderick Jones, whether that be Darnell Wright, I don't think they're guaranteed the left tackle spot. I think, if anything, they're more suited to be, the path there at least is more towards the right tackle. So I don't think whoever you take is guaranteed to be left tackle.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. I think there's some people who would say, well, if you're investing, it's 17th overall pick. I know it's not that high, but if you're investing that, then he should be the left tackle, because that's obviously a more premier position worthy of a pick.
But a top tier offensive lineman is a top tier offensive lineman. They don't have to be left. Tackle is still really important, especially when you have a developing quarterback like Justin Fields. So for my pick, just full honesty for how I did this mock draft, I went for just what I did simmed it and then went through that and kind of just went through. And then guys that I picked were more upside guys because we like guys with, and by we, I mean like the Bears too, like guys with motor and that athleticism that they could kind of mold too. So I had in my sim come up a trade proposal. Didn't even something that I offered, something that was proposed in this, fantasy world. The Los Angeles Rams proposed trading pick number 36, 69, 77, and a second and third rounder in 2024 for pick number 9.
Holy shit.
I took that because with Ryan Poles, that's a lot of picks.
Wait, say it again.
So the Bears would receive here pick number 36, pick number 69, nice, pick number 77, a 2024 second rounder, and a 2024 third rounder. And the Rams receive pick number 9, which is crazy. I don't think that would ever happen, but I was like, screw it. That's a lot of picks to work with, and it's a mock draft, so let's go with the side of more picks. Why not? And because I was also thinking, kind of like what we brought up in the beginning of this episode, was guys are falling. Guys are sliding up and down draft boards. So at 36 even, let's say at that point, maybe Ryan Poles packages, a couple picks together, jump back into the first round at that point, 36 and something else, I don't know. But you have options there. So I kind of liked that flexibility and it was intriguing to me. I did try to jump back into the first round in this, but I was unsuccessful. So I just stood at 36 and took a pick there. But my point being that you could possibly find like a Darnell Wright at 36 there if he slides, or somebody else. Maybe Kalijah Kancey slides, into the second round, which would be crazy, I know.
Yeah.
But there's options here. Maybe Quentin Nelson falls down. Quentin Johnson falls.
He's not going to fall that far. He's not going to fall that far.
Maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Sure, that's
falls,
possible.
That far. So just something that I thought was interesting. And for that amount of picks, I said, screw it. Why not? So got all the way to 36. Didn't get any of those guys. So I ended up going with somebody you're familiar with, DeJuan Jones.
Yeah.
Offensive tackle.
Okay.
And just what jumped out to me, why I made 6'8" and 370 is crazy. That's a huge body to throw at right tackle and protect Justin Fields. And that's kind of why I went with this pick, just because he's huge. And all the scouting reports say that despite his size, he's quick too. Like he can move, he can move fast.
He can dunk a basketball.
And he can dunk. Like that's crazy. So for that, that's somewhat like that's that nasty factor that I think you bring, that Matt Eberflus talks about wanting to have that motor factor. So I went with DeJuan Jones. Maybe not an offensive lineman that a lot of people have talked about, but that size jumped off to me, and I was like, holy crap. So that's what I went with. Still went offensive line, but, didn't get anyone that fell that far that we've talked about, but still a position of need that I think you can work with there.
I've been in the same room as DeJuan Jones a number of times, interviews and stuff. He's the largest human I've ever seen. Like, no doubt. Like, 6'8", 400 pounds. Like, he is just large. And again, as Jake mentions, like, it's not like he's 6'8", 400 in a mobile. Like, this guy can move, right? Like, good luck getting by this guy. He will get beat sometimes by quicker, shorter, faster stand-up rushers who are able to bend under him and, by him. That happens. But if you're willing to bank on that size, like, this is a guy who's dominant. And the other thing that I think is key here, and I think one of the reasons that you picked this player, and something that I kind of wanted to underline throughout my draft, was this was another Senior Bowl participant. Again, Luke Getsy coaching that Senior Bowl was right there in front of all of these guys the entire week, right? He has the best scouting report of anyone on some of these players and some of these really talented players that participated in the Senior Bowl. DeJuan Jones is one of them. His draft stock has really risen since the combine and since everybody has seen that he is still actually athletic enough to compete at his size and weight. And again, like, he was there when Justin Fields was there. Like, there's a little, like, I don't know if it matters that much when it comes to offensive line versus receiver as far as that correlation and relationship between your quarterback and offensive lineman, but it's a nice thing to have. He knows him. He understands his game a little bit more, understands his limitations. So I like that pick. I mean, you're still, like, DeJuan Jones' ceiling isn't anywhere near Broderick Jones or Paris Johnson.
Right.
But that's a player who's going to be your starting right tackle if you draft him. He's going to be effective for you, and he might just be good enough for you to hold it down. He's not going to be a superstar, but is he going to be good enough for you to be at least serviceable and keep your quarterback upright? Yes. And, like, I don't know if that's what I mean. I don't know if the ceiling is there for DeJuan, but that size is just I don't blame you for not wanting to pass on that.
Yeah, and I mean, even if he becomes, nobody's saying he has to become all pro right tackle. But if he becomes, Bobby Massey when he was at his peak,
Bobby.
when like the first couple years, not the end when you end up having, but like if he becomes like a slightly above league average lineman, I think
Charles
you take
Leno
that.
or something.
Sure, that was who I was.
You
probably
want to be a little bit better than that,
right? Exactly. Which but then that's why he's being taken here instead of the 7th round, like Charles Leno. So I digress.
Do you think that Ryan Poles would really be content falling out of the first round entirely, though, if you made this trade?
Which is why I tried to get back into the first round in this, by packaging maybe 36 and 53 to get back.
Yeah.
But I think in this situation, Ryan Poles would probably have jumped back into the first round.
Yeah,
point.
Okay, that's a great caveat then, because I agree, and I think he values picks and he values picks late, but there's enough talent in that first round where I think he's going to be scared to move out of it entirely.
Agree.
So I have a trade up into the first round before we go on here. I have the Bears trading back into the first round. So remember, they got pick number 32 from the Steelers, right? And they still have picks 61, 103, 218, 53, 64. I kind of read those out of order. 133, 136, 148, and 258. So they have a crap ton of picks. I think they're going to move back into the first round, right? So after trading out of 9, you have 32, so you have essentially one more first-round pick here, but you also have the assets to move back in. And I don't think, when I was looking through this, there's not a lot of teams, in my opinion, who don't have enough holes who are willing to trade out late in the first round, like some of these teams that are close to winning the Super Bowl, maybe a couple players away. But the Eagles do already have a first-round pick at number 10 overall. And I think that they're going to get a player they like there, whether it's Bijan Robinson. So with their second pick at number 30, I think they're going to be more willing to move out, knowing that, hey, we already got our guy. We're already, we think that we're already close to the Super Bowl. This isn't a necessity. Let's trade out. Let's accrue some later picks, and get some value there. And I think the Bears are going to give up pick 61, pick 103, and pick 218 for number 30 overall. So you're giving up 3 picks, but that's kind of the price you have to pay, essentially moving up 30 slots there from 61 to 30. You might have to pay a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
You might sometimes in these trades here back into the first round and later, the compensation isn't as significant as you would expect, actually, because sometimes the drop off later in the first round and the second round is significant with the prospects available for you. But I think they're going to move back up to 30. 61, 103, 218 is what I have, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had to give up 53. But the player I have at 53 could also be available at 61. So at number 30 overall, I think they're going to draft edge from LSU, B.J. Ojulari, a name that's kind of really flown under the radar, right? We talked about Isaiah Foskey, but I guess we didn't really mention it because he's in that range where he's not, obviously, he's not good enough to be taken at 9 or even at 17, but he's also too good to be taken at 53. So we didn't really think about him. I don't think much to be available there. He's kind of rising in the draft recently. This guy's a stud, man. If you watch his tape, really, really explosive. When you watch his tape after this, I'm sure you haven't watched a lot of B.J. Ojulari tape, but you should after this. You're going to be really, really impressed. He is extremely explosive, great bend, super quick. He's more of a stand-up rusher, but his tape at LSU is phenomenal. I mean, this guy is violent. He's violently quick. He punishes the quarterback when he gets into the backfield. He's effective on run defense. I think before the start of last year, he was more projected to be an early first rounder, and I'm not really. He had an injury to start last year.
I do kind of remember that.
I think it was a pec injury or something. He ended up being actually all SEC though, despite that this past year. That's an impressive feat in a conference like that. This guy is good, and I think the Bears are going to have to and are going to be willing to move up for a guy who's going to be their premier edge rusher. I mean, that is the biggest hole on the roster aside from defensive tackle. But even then, with Justin Jones there, they have nobody at edge. This is going to be their guy. I think they're going to be willing. And again, I know it's quote-unquote rare for Ryan Poles to be trading up. He more likes to accrue assets and trade down, and I think he's going to do that later in the draft. But after already trading down with the Panthers at number 9 and then trading it down again with the Steelers, you're in a position now where you have enough picks. You can trade up. You don't have to worry about your future assets. You're not mortgaging the future by trading up here to number 30. And I think the same mindset as you have, they're going to want to move back into the first round because they have enough picks and get another guy and really be winners of this draft if they do that. I mean, B.J. Ojulari is really good, and I like just that idea of them being able to move up. So,
yeah, and I mean, for your mock on this side, that takes care of the 2 biggest needs, which were offensive tackle and edge, because you, like you said, you have no one really there. With my second pick at 53, I stayed there. I kind of went the same way with a guy that at a position need on the defensive side who we've heard a lot about, not the person specifically, but the position and how much it needs to be addressed. I took a defensive tackle. I took Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. Okay. Another dude who's just enormous, who's like 6'4", over like 320 something pounds. And, he's listed at 6'3", 337, like, which is crazy. But that defensive tackle position, possibly even nose tackle, like that 3 technique, we've heard about it over and over and over. And that's why that was the whole discussion with Jalen Carter, possibly at number 1 overall, because that's the focal point of Matty Eberflus's defense. And that's kind of where you build everything. And that's where you need the disruption to come from. With edge as well, but, in the middle there. And a guy who comes from, Big Ten, going against Big Ten offensive linemen, which, 2 of them are going to be top 10 picks already with Skoronski and Johnson. So that, should tell you a little bit of something. And the Big Ten generally churns out NFL type offensive linemen. So this guy at this size who has this kind of, going against NFL type competition, I just think that's a good spot to take someone with that kind of high ceiling there to be that disruptor for your defense. Obviously, you miss out on Jalen Carter in the situation. You miss out on Lucas Van Ness and Will Anderson and Kalijah Cansey. So if you could get someone huge and disruptive here to pair with, whether it be Justin Jones or, whoever, I just think that we've heard about it so much. I don't think it goes unaddressed in the first, however many picks that the Bears have, whether it be here at 53 and that's their second pick, since 9 or not. But I just think that how much we've heard about it, how much it's been harped on, I don't think it goes unaddressed for very long in this draft.
I think you definitely could be right. Mozzie Smith is a great prospect, right? Rare combination of size and athleticism. You talked about that 6'4", 320 frame, 6'3", 320 frame. Second overall athleticism score among combine defensive tackles. But same sort of situation as Jalen Carter. He was caught with by police for speeding, was arrested for possessing a concealed weapon without a valid license to carry one. So you have a little bit of character things there that could be questionable. But it's the same conversation, I guess, as Jalen Carter. Like, do you have trust in your coaching staff and your front office to, like, mend the character issues, quote unquote, with this player, right? That's one of the reasons why he's fallen a little bit. A lot of people thought that this guy would be sort of a late first rounder. He sort of fell. This happened in October, so it's been a while since then. But, this guy repped out 34 on the bench press. Like, he's massive. But, I like it. I like it. I agree with you that it's unlikely that it will go unaddressed, that either at edge or, defensive tackle. Like, it is unlikely that one of those positions will go unaddressed here among the first 4 picks that they have. So, yeah, I like Mozzie Smith. I at pick 53, he should be available for you there too. We'll see. There might be a team in the late on the first round that's willing to bank on that though. But again, the character thing is.
And we also just don't know. It depends on how the draft shakes out. Too. All right. Did you stick at 61?
So I have 53. Okay. So I traded 61 to the Eagles. So I have 53, but I also have 32. Remember, I got 32 from the Steelers. So real quick, let me do 32 and 53. At 32 overall, I know this sounds crazy, but you have the flexibility now. You already took Broderick Jones and B.J. Ojulari. You can do this. I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs, running back from Alabama, at 32 overall. Yep, I'm doing it. You have 53 and 64 still. You can still get really talented players there. This is one of those moments where I've always said don't draft running back before round 4. You have the ability to do it now. You have a luxury here in this 32nd overall pick. When I was drafting here, I didn't see a lot of guys I loved available. Why not take this kid? When I did my first round mock draft on OnTap Sportsnet, I traded down to 19 with the Buccaneers, and I took Bijan Robinson. Then I ended up trading back in for B.J. Ojulari. But Jahmyr Gibbs is this guy is also really impressive. Again, 6 years ago, Jake, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are surefire first rounders, probably surefire top 15 picks. The value of running backs has severely diminished since then, right? Remember Saquon Barkley was like the 3rd overall pick, or was he 5 or something like that? Was he 2?
Yes.
He was 2. Like, that will never happen again. And arguably, Bijan Robinson is a better, if not same prospect as him. And Jahmyr Gibbs actually isn't far behind. 4.3, 640, elite shiftiness and quickness, obviously extremely effective at Alabama. Only 996 yards, this past year, but a really good receiver. 477 yards receiving this past year. 300 plus receiving yards each year of his career at Alabama. Elite quickness, as I mentioned, tackle breaking ability, and I think idea that I sort of had when I was doing these and deciding on running backs was, is there something about drafting a bell cow true running back that's going to be attracted to Luke Getsy to say, hey, we need a guy to completely rely on to take snaps away from Justin Fields. We know that Khalil Herbert and Deonta Foreman are essentially filler running backs. Neither of them are a true running back one. They're fine. They can be enough for you. A running back isn't going to necessarily be what pushes you over the edge win the Super Bowl. But if you have a guy in Jahmyr Gibbs who's going to come in and be a surefire number one and take a majority of the carries and say, hey, we can rely on you to be really effective on every single snap, is that attractive to them for now to be able to say, if you have Jahmyr Gibbs, we don't have to rely on Justin Fields to be our running back. We don't have to do as many quarterback designs. He can feel more comfortable to just hand the ball away instead of having to take it on the read option because he doesn't have trust in his running back to be as effective. Jahmyr Gibbs can be a top 10 running back in this league. He's really, really good. He has the flexibility to fit in this offense as a receiving back. I think he is one of those players who is justified taking because of the impact he can have on your offense. I mean, this guy, watch his tape, Jake. He's awesome. He's awesome.
So, out of curiosity, who was like the second person that you would have picked behind Gibbs? Like, who were you most contemplating behind Gibbs?
You know, that's the thing. Like, when I'm talking about here, the guy's available at 32, there wasn't like a player where I was like, crap, like if I take Gibbs, I'm going to miss this guy. Like, I think that range between 30 and 53 is pretty even. Like,
sure.
I don't think that late end of the first round has enough intriguing prospects where I was like, man, I'm really missing out on somebody if I don't take Jahmyr Gibbs here, which is why I did that, right? Which is why I was able to take a running back when I usually would never do this. I mean, maybe, like, you could even argue, I would rather take a running back there than a wide receiver, right? I mean, it would depend crazy thing to say? If it's not Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith, and Jacob or Quentin Johnson,
then probably not, right?
I don't love Cedric Tillman. I don't love Jalen Hyatt.
Josh Downs.
I mean, maybe, like, the only potential guy was maybe Luke Whippler, center from Ohio State, that I really like. Maybe DeJuan Jones. But again, after shoring up the need at tackle with Broderick Jones earlier in the draft, I felt fine. I mean, Foskey was maybe there, but like...
Were any of the tight ends available? Either of the...
Yeah, Darnell Washington. Oh, not Dalton Kincaid or Michael Mayer.
No, okay.
But yeah.
If they were, would you have considered them?
No, I don't think so. I think Dalton Kincaid's going to be really good. Michael Mayer probably be really good too, but...
Because we talked about how deadly that two tight end combo. Well, if they weren't even on the board, then it's... I mean, I definitely... And in this scenario, you've addressed edge and offensive line already too, so I see the argument for sure. Also, that 2018 draft... Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, Sam Darnold, Denzel Ward, Bradley Chubb was the top five.
It's got to be one of the most disgusting top fives ever. Denzel Ward is fine, but
the next five were Quentin Nelson, Josh Allen, Roquan Smith, Mike McGlinchey, Josh Rosen.
Yeah, so it should have been reversed. Like the 5 through 10 should have been the first 5 instead of the 1 through 5.
Probably
because all those guys ended up being better.
And if not Allen, number 1.
Yeah, literally should have been number 1 overall.
Anyway.
Yeah, real quick, and I had number 53 too. I'll just go fast on this. 53 overall. You find your cornerback, Kelee Ringo. I actually don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Is it Kelee?
Kelee, I think.
Kelee,
maybe.
I'll know that if they draft him. Georgia cornerback Kelee Ringo, elite size and strength, outside quarterback, right? Cornerback 6'2", 207, really good starting outside corner. Not the greatest, lateral quickness and agility, not great change of direction. We'll get him out in some sand workouts. We'll work on his change of direction. We'll be fine. But again, another guy that allows Kyler Gordon to return to the slot, true shutdown corner outside. A guy who, he's not on the same level as Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon, but a guy who played at the top defense, was your top cornerback at Georgia, was making plays in the biggest moments, always rose up to the occasion against the best receivers. Just really impressive size and strength, still pretty fast, quick. I like Ringo a lot. I'm surprised. I don't know what the reason is that he's fallen so far. This was supposed to be a surefire first rounder before the combine. He significantly fell. He's going to be available for you at 53. His ADP was around, I think, 58, maybe even 60. So I quote unquote reached according to PFF, getting up to 53 overall to take Ringo. But with the pick at 64, I think you had to do it. Again, you get another shutdown corner. I think it's one of the needs that they're going to address there, maybe in the first 4 picks, just with the unsure nature of what happens after Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon there with CB3. So I think Ringo just makes too much sense there at 53. I think cornerback has to be the option. I like him more than Julius Brents. I like him more than the other guys available. He's got too much experience, and I think they got to address that somewhere in the first 4.
Yeah, so at 61 at the Bears' next pick, I addressed corner as well.
Okay.
I went with Julius Brents, corner out of Kansas State. Senior Bowl, too, which is important because that means Luke Getsy saw a lot of them, too, down in Mobile, Alabama. So I think that's going to – because I was going through this, and we haven't really – I mean, we've mentioned it, but we haven't talked a lot about Luke Getsy at the Senior Bowl and what that kind of impact that might have. And I think here is where it comes into play because Brents is a guy whose stock has gone up lately, and he has that potential to kind of be a ball-hawking type of corner. So – I kind of like that. I think the fit works. Same thing. Kyler Gordon moves back to the slot. You have insurance then in case Jalen Johnson leaves, and it really just ties together your backfield, and then you feel really good about the defensive backfield as well as the linebackers, and you address the defensive line obviously throughout the rest of the draft and possibly in the next wave of free agency following the draft as well.
Yeah, talking about another guy with great size, 6'3", 198, similar projectables as Kaylee Ringo. Pretty good athlete, not the best athlete among cornerbacks, but good enough, right? 41.5 vertical jump is huge. You can contest anything with Justin Jefferson or Christian Watson, whoever it may be in the NFC North. So I like Brents. I like Ringo more. Would you take Ringo? Was Ringo available for you?
Ringo was not available.
Okay, so would you have taken him?
Probably, just because too you get that more like stiffer competition from Ringo and who he played against. So I mean, not to say that Brents didn't get that at Kansas State, but a little bit of a step up. So yeah. I would have probably taken Ringo, but here with Brents and the Senior Bowl connection, I went with him.
Yeah, it's also weird. People are like not high on Brents at all. Like for some reason, I don't know what it is, but I watched the tape and I'm impressed. And I know highlights are highlights and whatever, but Brents is a solid player to have, especially at 61. And there's a chance that he goes higher than that. I think when we did our first round mock last week, or no, not last week, like the first 3-round mock that we did like weeks ago in early April, he was like ADP 38 or something. So you're getting a steal there by ADP at 64 because I traded 61 to the Eagles to move up and back into the first round. I'm taking Isaiah Foskey. He was available. Sure. Why not, right? I already pinned this guy, for the Bears when we did that the first 3 rounds mock, a couple weeks ago. Again, just really decorated at Notre Dame. Great quickness off the edge, good bend, a lot of power, good combination of size and power. Just enough proven ability at Notre Dame, to be content. And apparently Foskey's rising. Apparently I've seen him late end of the first round. So another one of those players that, he might fall, but also a team might really have loved what he did at Notre Dame and see those numbers and say, how can we pass up on the guy who's the all-time sack leader at Notre Dame, beating out, I believe, who was it? Justin Tuck, I think. So, again, big name there. Isaiah Foskey's been doing it. He's an experienced player. He's older. He's going to bring leadership to this team. I like him at 64.
Yeah, 64 for me. I went with Cody Mauch from North Dakota State, offensive line.
I like that. I love that.
This guy, he's not a huge, as far as measurables go, but has a lot of power, could be a tank in the run game. And then every scouting report you read, too, it says in pass protection, recovers quickly, is really fast with his feet, and obviously for Justin Fields and how you want him to progress as a passer, that's huge. Not saying he's going to start, obviously, right away, because, obviously, we've both addressed in both of our mocks that took offensive linemen. I took DeJuan Jones, and we talked about his measurables, but someone who could potentially be that backup and step up and maybe even that swing tackle type of role. So I went back to offensive line there, but what about you?
Yeah, another Senior Bowl guy, Cody Mauch. There you go, right? It makes sense. I don't have 64, so I'll go to 133. At 133, and I also don't have I have 64, sorry. Didn't have 61. Don't have 103 from that trade to the Eagles. I do have 133. Taking Dontavian Wicks, wide receiver from Virginia. I think they're going to take a wide receiver somewhere in this range.
I agree.
They kind of have to, right, for depth there. I don't think that them re-signing Dante Pettis last week is going to mean that he is for sure on the roster, right? You know that their top 5 are locked in with DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Velus Jones Jr., and Equanimeous St. Brown, but they're looking for that 6th guy who can possibly, be better than Velus or Equanimeous St. Brown. Dontavian Wicks doesn't really fit the bill for what they want to do on offense from an explosiveness and athleticism standpoint. He only runs a 4.6, 4.40, right? But he's faster than on tape. He can go up and get the ball, though. He's more of a Chase Claypool type player when it comes to being able to go up and get it and win against most defenders. Really good hands, really good strength there. I like Dontavian Wicks. The wide receiver, it's interesting, though, when you get to this part of the draft, in comparison to years prior, to me, the wide receiver prospects are not as intriguing, which doesn't favor the Bears that much. But I think Dontavian Wicks is the best player available here for you at number 133 at wide receiver, at least. And I think they're going to address that need somewhere in this. So I'm taking Dontavian Wicks, wide receiver, Virginia.
So my next couple picks I have from the Rams trade, 69 and 77.
That's right.
So 69, I went Jordan Battle from Alabama, defensive back. This is, again, kind of an insurance play. Just because of, Eddie Jackson's on the big contract. You do have an out after this year, even though he played well. Maybe you see something there. Or it's just good to have bodies. Look at what the Bears dealt with in the defensive backfield last year. And who you got, you had Lamar Jackson playing, not the quarterback. And maybe you would have been better if you did. But, just to have guys coming from Alabama too. Last time you took a safety from Alabama, worked out pretty well for you. So I like Jordan Battle there. 77, a guy that I've talked about before, Siaka Ika from Baylor. Pair him with Amazi Smith. Ika was double teamed a ton at Baylor, and he was still a disruptive presence. Just going back to that disruptor type of thing at the 3 technique, Matty Eberflus harps on it. Another guy there that could be that disruptor and be that kind of key focal point for your defense. Really like that. I held on to 103, and I think you're going to have a lot to say about this. Jaden Reed was available here at 103 for Michigan State. He's fallen a lot over the last, calendar year, 365 days or so, because he was someone who people were like, he could be a first-round wide receiver and just completely fell, but has really big playability. Even at Michigan State, where they don't have the best air attack, big playability, could be a deep threat. I thought here at 103, like you said, I think they're going to take wide receiver at some point and try to continue to put bodies in that room with high upside. I like Reed a lot here at this position to potentially pair with Justin Fields as a guy who we could develop with as well. I mean, because you already have DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, et cetera, et cetera. But I like Reed here as comes in, not a ton of pressure, and can kind of build that rapport in a low pressure situation with Justin Fields. Because it would be like wide receiver 5.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, as we were just saying, he'd be wide receiver 5. It's probably 5 if he's drafted at this slot. I'm trying to go back because I remember the name from. I mean, I know the name, but I remember him. I believe making a real good play against Ohio State last year. Yeah, he had a huge play against Ohio State, 24-yard touchdown. He had 67 yards in that game. He looked pretty good there. Another Senior Bowl guy, right? Again, this was a player that had a really good Senior Bowl performance. People were loving him after that. He showed up. He showed out at the Senior Bowl. He rose up to where people thought he'd be an early second rounder, and he's sort of fallen since then. But, the athleticism score, not great, right? Not the best athlete, but a pretty crisp route runner. What I remember from the Senior Bowl content was just beating guys at the line of scrimmage with his route running ability. He only runs a 4.45 40, 33.5 vertical jump, right? 33rd ranked combine wide receiver athleticism score, but has really good route running ability, has the ability to get open, and has, still does have explosive. Like, that's not to say 4.45 is slow,
right? Okay,
like I'm not like 4.4 speed at any point is good,
sure.
But just was really competitive. Like I'm remembering it now. Like he was not afraid of the moment against Ohio State, against some bigger cornerbacks. Went up and got the ball, was routing them up. I like Jaden Reed. I think it's possible. I just am unsure why he's fallen so far since the Senior Bowl. I don't know what it is. I mean, maybe it was his combine
kind of that
low
stakes performance where you don't need him to come in and be a starter.
That's true.
You had for
you
the Bears,
develop him.
He could be wide receiver 5 there. At 133,
he's also a Naperville kid. So if they like the Chicago people, Chicago suburb people.
133, I have DeMarvion Overshown, linebacker, Texas. Just a guy. Obviously, you have your linebackers. You have the guys you signed in free agency. You like Jack Sanborn coming back too, but you still need bodies. You still need guys to develop as well. And he's long and athletic and made plays as a linebacker at Texas. I just think this is a high upside play with a guy who could develop into a playmaker in the middle there. So that's who I went with. 136, I went with back to offensive line, just keep supplementing kind of the trenches on the offensive side. Jordan McFadden out of Clemson. Okay. I just went more with the floor here, coming from Clemson, where they have a good program, a high program that churns out NFL talent. Nothing crazy about him, but just somebody who I think coming from a team that was highly ranked coming from Dabo Swinney's program. That's why I took the swing on took the swing on him here, just mostly because of the pedigree of the school he comes from.
Okay. Yeah. And real quick, I like Damari over Schoen, and I think in general, people have, again, said no way they're going to take a linebacker anywhere, like a shirt up. No, I mean, the depth at linebacker is not good. If one of those guys goes down, you are FUCKED. Like that, you're in bad position. And if Jack Sanborn isn't what you think he is, there's always a chance of that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good in the past 6 games, but there's always a chance that sometimes these things happen with teams that are really bad at the end of the season. Like guys come in and they end up playing well because, well, the bar is set pretty low for that defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Jackson will be fine, but I like that. So at 136, I'm going. This is where I think they address defensive tackle, and you can still find a player here. Let's not get it twisted. You can find talent in these middle rounds, and I think they're going to get a guy in Jacqueline Roy from Baylor. Davlin Tomlinson type player, 6'4", 315, huge nose tackle, has the ability to be a year 1 impact player, right? Can come in and kind of just stuff the middle. Actually, I'm not sure he didn't go to Baylor. I apologize on that. I think I mixed him up with Siaki Ika, LSU. Sorry, LSU guy. Jacqueline Roy again, high pedigree school and LSU, but just a pretty good athlete. I'm looking for athletes all over the board because this is what the Bears want to put on their defense and offense. They want to build a quick, fast defense that is athletic. He is athletic for this size, 6'4", 315. Just a unit there at nose tackle who will potentially draw double teams the same way Siaki Ika did. They have to address it at some point. I think Jacqueline Roy's really good value at 136. I like him a lot. Just pretty sound tackler, huge, 6'4", 315. So,
yeah, I'm just gonna breeze through the last because I think there's only one other pick in mind. At 148, I took Isaiah McGuire from Mizzou. Edge. That's the first time I addressed edge there. Okay. Just kind of long and explosive. I just thought like the upside there. I at 258, my last pick, I took Isaiah Bowser, running back UCF, just because you got to throw one in there.
Hey, Bowser's good.
Yeah, and I like the name. But this is the one I think you're going to get a little mad at me for.
Oh, God.
218, I took Stetson Bennett.
You fucking...
Not because, just because look what happened with the 49ers. I know everyone's going to talk about this ad nauseum, but having a high-level backup behind your starter is really, really valuable. And right now, your backup is P.J. Walker and Nate Peterman. And I think at the very least, Bennett could take Peterman's spot on the practice squad. So that's kind of just what I went with. A guy who won 2 national championships. He was there at 218. Screw it. Put bodies in the quarterback room. Why not?
I would be lying if I said I didn't explore quarterback here either. I mean, they got P.J. Walker. Right? So... I don't even think that if they drafted a player at 218, 258, that they'd be QB2 on the depth chart, honestly. But,
sure, no, definitely not.
But, I mean, I don't hate it. I actually don't hate it. I mean, you have insurance there.
Right.
And Justin Fields is a prone to injury quarterback. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be if he keeps running this much. It's going to happen. So, I don't hate it. I mean, my reaction to it was, oh, God, you effing idiot. But, I mean, if you, like, because of your trade – you accumulated so many mid-round picks.
Right, yes.
You have the flexibility to just take quarterback here.
Right, exactly. And that was part of it, too. Like, I had addressed offensive line and defensive line, and I mean, really, defensive as a whole so much,
as well as wide receiver for you.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I went with.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give it to you. At 148, I have Oluwatimi, center from Michigan. Get some more depth at center. I know you have Doug Kramer there, but he was a 7th rounder last year. He's, not a lock to make the roster. I like Oluwatimi. He was the 4th-ranked athlete as a center coming out of the combine. Played really solid in Michigan. 4-year starter, highly decorated. Not great lateral quickness, but a guy who again played at a top program, who made it to the Final Four of the college football playoff, and he's just been a part of the what was ranked and won the award for the top offensive line the past 2 years in Michigan, and really opened up a ton of holes in the run game. Trust me, I remember it because Donovan Jackson torched Ohio State in the game at Michigan or at Ohio State last year, and he was a guy that I was like was just dominating our guys up front. So I recognize his name, and it's interesting. I'm going, and me and you are both going here with a lot of guys from big name schools, right? I've got Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Virginia, LSU, like. It ends up not being that way, right? It always ends up that they're going to take some guy like Braxton Jones from
exactly
some southern Utah. remember where he went.
I think it was
something
Utah
like
State.
That. No, it was Southern. His uniform was red. I remember that. So it's just like you're always more attracted to those players, though. You know, like naturally, Southern Utah. You're always naturally more attracted to players that played in big moments at bigger schools who have good programs, right? Like I can't blame myself for doing that, and I kind of do it at the end.
Well, you see and hear them more too.
Yeah, exactly.
In general,
yeah, right. You're more aware of the name because they played in those games. 258, I took DeAnthony Jones, edge from Houston. I'm not going to give you a full scouting report on DeAnthony Jones at 258. It's like a 99% chance that they don't draft that guy.
Sure.
So there's not really a point of me breaking that down.
Fair.
He's fine. I'll just recap mine and then we'll recap yours real quick. So huge draft for me. I had them trading number 9 overall, which I do think is I'm all in on them trading that, whether it's to 17 or 19, wherever it is, 11. They're going to trade that pick, and they're going to trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think you're going to trade that, get round 2, 32 overall back for that, and you get Broderick Jones at 17. And then you trade back into the first round, give up 61, 103, and 218 to get back to number 30 overall from Philadelphia and draft edge B.J. Ojulari from LSU. Then at 32 overall that you got from Pittsburgh. Sorry, it's a lot to keep up with here. Running back, Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. Then at 53 overall, you have had that pick. You get cornerback Calais Ringo. At 64 overall, get edge Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. Number 133 overall, get wide receiver Dontavian Wicks from Virginia. Number 136, take Jacqueline Roy, defensive tackle, nose tackle, LSU. And at 148, get Olu Oluwatimi, center from Michigan. His actual first name is like Olugawalawalam. It's like something crazy. And then at 258, Anthony Jones, edge from Houston. That rounds out my full 7-round Bears mock. Jake, you want to read out yours again?
Yeah, I went to I obviously did the trade from 9 to 36. Got a bunch of picks. Yeah, I mean, why not? DeJuan Jones, Mozzie Smith, Julius Brent, Jaden Reed, Cody Mauch, and Stetson Bennett was really the other. The one that stands out the most that everyone really cares about. But I mean, I think what we look at here was, you went one way with a couple trades up. I went one with just the big trade down, obviously a huge, step down. But I think that it just kind of shows that this could go anyway. Like this could go. Are the Bears going to trade from 9 to 36 and then do nothing? No, probably not. I would be surprised by. But are they going to trade around? Possibly. And I think that there's just a lot of options here, and it's just because the uncertainty of this draft, where guys go, especially at the top, is going to change a lot of things. Where, Will Levis and CJ Stroud end up going is going to change a lot of different things.
Correct.
If it's at number 2 or at number 4 or wherever, it's just going to have a huge impact on us. Where Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson go will change a lot. Where Jalen Carter falls to, what happens with these wide receivers. Like there's going to be a lot of variance here. And I think that's why a lot of people just don't really know what's going to happen here.
Yeah. A lot of ambiguity, a lot of, unpredictableness. That's not even a word, I don't think. But yeah, again, we're going to come back, I think, on Monday, the day after, 2 days after the draft ends and say, we're shocked. Like I truly think by that first round we were shocked. Maybe not shocked by what the Bears did. I think we're both in consensus that they're going to trade one way or another down. But just in consensus, shocked about how that first round plays out. It's just really, or it's either that or it just was what we thought it was going to be. Bryce Young 1, CJ Stroud 2, Will Anderson 3. Anthony Richardson 4. Like nothing crazy happens. It's just that is also a possibility. But it'll be fun, man. I think the Bears have a lot of options. I think they're going to accrue a lot of picks, and I think they're going to walk away from this as one of the winners of the 2023 NFL Draft. And it's hard not to be with the flexibility that they have.
Yeah, let's hope so, and we'll see how it goes. Like Kevin said, we'll be back on Monday. We'll break down every pick that was made, how they fit with the team, if we think they were taken too late or if it was a steal, and we'll talk about it. We'll break it all down and kind of project forward for next season as it gets closer, because the draft is the next big hurdle before offseason program starts. So we'll see how it goes. On Monday, we'll be back, so join us for that. Myself and Kevin will break it all down, every pick, everyone that's made, everyone that's selected in your new Chicago Bears rookies. So excited for that. Come around for that. We'll be here on Monday, Bears Nation podcast, brought to you by OnTap Sports Net. We will see you Monday, and until then, bear down.